precedes that book, which, like the others, I have had the privilege of editing. Suffice it here to say that the current manuscript, like the others, was tendered to me by my friend and now my lawyer, young Harrison Smith of the city. Smith has had the pleasure of knowing Cabot personally, having originally met him several years ago in New England, and having been able to renew the acquaintance briefly in New York City something over a year ago. Indeed, our first account of the Counter-Earth, Tarnsman of Gore, was entrusted to Smith personally by Cabot, who shortly thereafter disappeared. This manuscript, the third, was received, according to Smith, under substantially the same unusual conditions as the second, conditions which he kindly delineated in a preface contributed to that volume. In all this, I regret only that I have never had the pleasure of meeting Cabot personally. There is a real Cabot, of course. I know that he exists, or existed. Insofar as I have been able, I have checked into these matters with great care. There was indeed a Tarl Cabot answering the description of these accounts who was raised in Bristol, and who attended Oxford, and taught in the small New England college referred to in the first book, and who subsequently rented an apartment in Midtown Manhattan at dates congruent with the accounts in the first and second books. In short, what can be confirmed, I have confirmed. Beyond this, of course, we have only the accounts of Cabot himself, brought to my attention by Smith, which we may or may not accept. John Norman. End note.
I wished that I had had longer to visit the fair, for on other occasion at another time I should have sought eagerly to examine its wares, drink at its taverns, talk with its merchants, and attend its contests. For these fairs are free ground for the many competitive, hostile Gorian cities, and provide almost the sole opportunity for the citizens of various cities to meet peaceably with one another. It is little wonder, then, that the cities of Gore support and welcome the fairs. Sometimes they provide a common ground on which territorial and commercial disputes may be amicably resolved without loss of honor, plenipotentiaries of warring cities having apparently met by accident among the silken pavilions. Further, members of castes such as the physicians and builders use the fairs for the dissemination of information and techniques among caste brothers, as is prescribed in their codes, in spite of the fact that their respective cities may be hostile. And as might be expected, members of the caste of scribes gather here to enter into dispute and examine and trade manuscripts. My small friend, Torm of Koroba, of the caste of scribes, had been to the fairs 4 times in his life. He informed me that in this time he had refuted 708 scribes from 57 cities. But I will not vouch for the accuracy of the report, as I sometimes suspect that Torm, like most members of his caste, and mine, tends to be a bit too sanguine in recounting his numerous victories. Moreover, I have never been too clear as to the grounds on which the disputes of scribes are to be adjudicated, and it is not too infrequently that both disputants leave the field each fully convinced that he has had the best of the contest. In differences among members of my own caste, that of the warriors, it is easier to tell who has carried the day, for the defeated one often lies wounded or slain at the victor's feet. In the contests of scribes, on the other hand, the blood that is spilled is invisible, and the valiant foemen retire in good order, reviling their enemies and recouping their forces for the next day's campaign. I do not hold this against the contests of scribes. Rather, I commend it to the members of my own caste. I missed Torm, and wondered if I would ever see him again, bounding about excoriating the authors of dusty scrolls, knocking the inkwell from his desk with an imperial sweep of the sleeve of his blue robe, leaping on the table in bird-like fury, denouncing one scribe or another for independently rediscovering an idea that had already appeared in a century-old manuscript, known to Torm, of course, but not to the luckless scribe in question. Rubbing his nose in his robe, shivering, leaping down to thrust his feet against the ever-present overloaded charcoal brazier that invariably burned under his table, amid the